Welcome to Phrase by Phrase, where we are studying the Bible one phrase at a time, and I can't believe it, this is our final lesson in the book of James. We're in chapter 5, verses 19 and 20, and this is what it says: "My brethren, if any among you strays from the truth, and one turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his way will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins." Now, we were looking at 4 ideas that are associated with this topic that James lays out. One, we saw that doctrine is a big issue, that when we get away from the truth, we stray away from the faith. We saw that sin is something to be absolutely avoided because of its destructive nature. Something else we need to understand when we're thinking about bringing somebody back who has strayed away is that God's grace totally restores the one who repents. You know, Jesus told the story of the prodigal son who had wandered away from the father, and yet the father's arms were open when the prodigal came back home to his father. He didn't deserve his father's warm reception. In fact, he had a difficult time accepting the father's reception, but that's how grace is. It's hard to receive precisely because we don't deserve it. And then when Jesus was telling the story, he brought the older son into the picture to voice maybe some of the objections that we often raise, that, you know, it's not fair that this person's shown mercy, or this person's going to take advantage of the father's mercy. He'll not learn his lesson. He doesn't deserve to have a party. But the father reminds both sons that it's not about keeping records. It's about resurrection. He was dead, and now he is alive, and that's what matters. Fourth thing I want us to think about as relates to bringing somebody back who's wandered away is that God is pleased when we help an erring brother or sister. James encourages us to do just that. If somebody is wandering away from the faith, maybe they were wandering in James's day because the persecution was just too great, the cost seemed too high, or they were afraid for their lives, and so the brothers are going out and they're finding them and bringing them back in. But we need to be careful when we do that. There's 3 things to remember if we're going to be involved in helping someone come back into the fold who has wandered away. The first one is this, that we have to check our motives. In Galatians 6:1 and 2, the Apostle Paul said, "Brethren, even if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you too will not be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, therefore fulfill the law of Christ," this law of love. But the motive here is to restore such a one. You don't find that person out to condemn them. You find them to restore them. You don't find them to point out how wrong they are, to expose them. You find them to restore them. And the word that's used for restore is the word that's a Greek word that means to set a bone. And you know, when a bone has been broken and set properly, when that bone heals, the place at which the bone broke, that place is actually stronger than it was before it broke. And so that's the idea, to set a brother or a sister back so they're actually stronger. And notice that this is a person who is caught, you who catches such one in sin. If a brother is caught in a sin, which means then that we have to go on facts. This is not rumor. Someone isn't caught unless we're dealing with facts. And then also we're to proceed with gentleness, so we don't accuse, but we ask questions. Here's another thing, if we're going to be involved in restoring a brother or sister, that we need to clear any logs from our own eyes first. Jesus said in Matthew 7:3, "Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' and behold, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." So it's not that we're not supposed to take the speck out of our brother's eye. We can be involved in restoring a brother or a sister, but we've got to make sure that we deal with our own stuff first. Number 3, confront in private. In Matthew 18:15, Jesus said, "If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private." That's face to face, eyeball to eyeball, voice to voice. Don't tell other people about him. Go to him directly. And then after James talks about restoring a brother, he just ends his letter abruptly. You know, unlike the Apostle Paul, who spent an entire chapter in Romans saying goodbye. I mean, Paul greeted over 30 people when he said goodbye. James just lists the final character of a true faith, and then he stops, no warning. And when we look at our Bibles, we can see the end is coming because we can see the print on the page, but his original audience, you know, would have listened to an audible reading of the letter. So they had no idea when he was at the end, so the reader just quit. So in keeping with James's style, I'm going to end this Bible series the way James ended his letter. Thanks for tuning in to Phrase by Phrase.